podium like to come down. We'll start with a brief introduce Jerry. Thank you. It's a silent movie. Jerry's era. No sound. I was just one of 16 million Americans who served in World War II. And I had a purity of purpose from the time I turned 18 on February 15, 1942. Purity of purpose in my life. That took me 3 weeks into my 21st year to a small island called Iwo Jima, straight from the Marine. They landed on the 19th of February, 67,000 American Marines fighting against 23 Japanese, 23,000 Japanese, and 28,000 of those soldiers were killed, 21,000 Japanese, and nearly 7,000 American Marines. 21,000 Marines were wounded. There were more medals of honor won by the Marines on Iwo Jima, that small island, than were won by the Marines in the entire war. I flew with 16 young guys who didn't come back. 5 were killed in Hawaii in training, and 11 were killed in combat. When I graduated from flying school, I graduated with 28 guys who were sent to Hawaii to get more time than we had, 10 hours in a P-40. 3 of those guys were my classmates, were from Iowa, Bob Roby, Bob Roseberry, and Al Sharon. And in the next class of rookies that came in, Tom McCullough from Sac City, Iowa. So of the 32 pilots in our squadron, 4 were from Iowa, and I was a Jersey guy. I didn't fit in with those guys. They were all great guys and good friends. Al Sharon was killed. He went to school in Waterloo with the Sullivan brothers, and he was killed on the 8th of July, 1945, in a strafing mission around Tokyo. When I came home and I was discharged, I didn't have a purpose in my life. The excitement, the exhilaration of being in the military, of being a warrior, of wearing a uniform in the United States of America, of being an officer, of being in charge of a squadron, was all gone. And there was really no purpose to my life whatsoever. I met my wife, Yellin. The soldiers, it was said, I think, by Aristotle or Plato, that only those who were killed in war do not suffer. And the women suffer just as much as the men. Maybe more, because women are different. They take on all of the problems of the men, as well as their own, as well as the children, as well as being a homemaker. And they suffer more. I know now that I caused Elaine a lot of suffering. We stuck it out, we love each other, we're going to stick it out to the end, whenever that is. And she's my helpmate, she's my partner. Anything that I'm doing, anything that I am because of my children and because of my wife, mostly because of my wife. In 1975, we were living in Florida, maybe my 15th or 18th or 20th attempt at making a living. Moved 10 or 12 or 14 times. I had no desires to do anything except to escape from myself. And so I had an addiction. And that addiction was golf. Believe it or not. If I wasn't playing golf 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, I was thinking about playing golf, or I was hitting balls in my backyard, or I was fixing my golf clubs. That was the only thing that kept me sane, with 4 sons running through the house all day long. But in 1975, we saw Maharishi Mahesh Yogi on television. She had been reading books. Our oldest son at the time was 16, 17, 18 years old. Well, he was a little older than that, 1975, but he had been reading the autobiography of a yogi. He had been into some Eastern philosophies. We went to a few meetings with him about Meher Baba. And Helene decided, long before she saw Maharishi, that she wanted to learn transcendental mystics. So she learned, my son Stephen learned in July when he came back from a European tennis tour. And in August, in self-defense pretty much, because I sat with them when they were meditating and I closed my eyes, which is what I was told to do, and just sit there and sit. And by a friend of mine who had learned TM and said, don't give them $125, I'll tell you what to do. I'll give you a mantra. Just say shalom and close your eyes. She told that to the guy down at TM Center in North Miami Beach, and he went ballistic, and I came in and I learned transcendental meditation. And I really, really, genuinely got my life back. In 2010, I received a phone call. We were living in Vero Beach, Florida. I received a phone call from a lady that I knew quite well. I knew her son fairly well. And she said, Jerry, what do you know about putting medals and ribbons and pins on a military uniform? I said, well, I don't know really a lot, but I think I can do it. He said, so what? Why are you asking me that? And she said, Dory committed suicide, and we want to bury him in his best uniform. She brought the uniform over. I did what I had to do. I thought I did it okay. And I broke down. I knew Dory Clark. He had served for 8 years in the Army. He was on a mission in Bosnia, which was 10 or 12 years prior to 2010. And he spotted a sniper somewhere in a window or in a tree. And he put his gun up to his arms, and he didn't pull the trigger, he froze. Split second, enough for the sniper to get a round off and kill the guy standing next to him, his best friend. When he was discharged, he came home and he started to drink. And then he went on drugs. Then he became a drug dealer. Then he divorced his wife. And one day in February of 2010, he put a gun to his mother's house and put a gun to his secretary's house. And I was shook up. I never thought about transcendental meditation as being something that would help him as it helped me. So I called Bob Roth of the David Lynch Foundation and asked them if they would start a division to help veterans learn TM. We went, I wrote a letter in 2010 under the auspices of Operation Warrior Wellness, a division of the David Lynch Foundation, to General Eric Shinseki, who was just released a story about veterans coming back with post-traumatic stress. They were going to do everything that they possibly could, and set up a meeting with him, with Bob Roth and Serena Roswald and I, and Ed Schloman, who was my co-chair in Operation Warrior Wellness, a Vietnam vet, Chief Sergeant Major, who suffered through Vietnam and picked me up Kojima in 2010, and now he's working with us, doing a wonderful job. Through him, Salvatore Cassano, the Fire Commissioner of New York, has learned Transcendental Meditation. Some other people of that nature have learned Transcendental Meditation so that we can help the first responders. But we went and we met with Scott Gould, the Deputy Secretary of the VA. And I asked Scott a question after I was through talking. I said, what does it cost the Veterans Administration to treat veterans with post-traumatic stress? By the way, there's a motion afoot down in Washington, D.C. to change the name of post-traumatic stress disorder to post-traumatic stress injury. It's being sponsored by somebody from a senator from North Dakota. And I think that will happen. Because it is not a disorder. It is an injury. I used to go to Virginia Rose's class here in the 8th grade. And one day, one of the young 13 or 14-year-old young boys asked me, were you wounded? And I thought for a moment, and I said, yes, I was wounded. But I wasn't wounded where you could see it. I didn't have any broken bones, and there was no cuts in my body, but I was wounded in my head. So I was speaking to Scott Gould in Washington, and I said, Scott, how much does it cost the VA every year for medications and psychiatry? When you saw somebody, they said you had shell shock or battle fatigue, forget it, it's over. Well, the sights and the sounds and the smells of my battle were never over. They're not over today in my head. I can see the faces of the 16 guys I flew with. I can see the sound, hear the sounds, and see the sights and smell the smells as I stand here with you now. The $3 trillion war told me that we're going to be spending $15 billion a year in 2006 or $7 for the next 50 or 60 years. 600 to 720 months at $300 to $400 to $500 a month per veteran. That's a lot of money. So we came up with a plan in Operation Warrior Wellness. We want to offer veterans from the OIF and the OEF from Iraq and Afghanistan scholarships. We want them to learn Transcendental Meditation. And we're here today to kick this fundraising event off in a way, but not asking you for money, but asking you who wants to learn TM. And we have some scientists here. We have Fred Travis who's going to show us and tell us why TM works, why it works for people who have stress, why Dr. Oz advocates it, why Oprah Winfrey advocates it, why Scott Gould now is having studies done by the VA. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being spent in Minnesota as we talk. It's a well-studied technique. Captain Scott Johnston, who is in charge of the Navy and Marine research at the Balboa Naval Hospital, wants the whole Navy to learn Transcendental Meditation. That comes from some of the Marines at Camp Pendleton who have learned, some of the Navy personnel. I've been there at Balboa, saw the wounds, the physical wounds. Of course, you can never see the hidden wound, the mental wound. So that's a bit of a story about why we're here and who we are. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Fred Travis through Chris Bush. Thank you very much.
Received his PhD in 1988 in psychology at Marshall University of Management here in Fairfield. After a 2-year postdoc in basic sleep research, he returned to NUM as director of the Center for Brain, Consciousness, and Cognition. At NUM, he has investigated the effects of the TM practice on a full range of human development, from combating ADHD and PTSD to promoting higher states of consciousness. Please welcome Dr. Fred Travis.